Hi, I'm Robert McMullen. I'm a psychiatrist. I've been in practice over 30 years. I went to Georgetown Medical School in Columbia for psychiatry. And I want to talk to you about solutions for depression that you might do before even seeing a psychiatrist, and sometimes they'll work. If it's a very bad depression, and especially if you're suicidal, you should probably just go get help right away and see a psychologist or psychiatrist. Now, one thing you can do is try to not let yourself go into a spiral of thinking negative things and all the bad things that could happen, and you can actually just stop yourself and say, wait a minute, I'm not going to think about that again, because you've thought about it 100 times before and you're not going to learn anything new. And you could also reframe the way you look at things. If I walked 2 miles and was all tired out and really exhausted, I could say, well, this is terrible. At my age, I can only walk 2 miles. I'm terrifically out of shape. I'm getting old. Or I could say, that's the beginning. This is the first time I really tried to do any exercise in 3 years, and I want to hold 2 miles. And I'm going to do 2 miles every day, and then I'm going to build it up. You can look at everything, negative or positive. There's nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so. I believe Hamlet said that. Now, some other things are, if you wake up early, say at 3 or 4 in the morning, rather than lay there in misery and be probably half asleep, get out of bed at 3 or 4 and stay out of bed the rest of the day and don't sleep until the next night. When you cut out the last half of your sleep, it often will pop you out of depression. And so around 9 or 10 o'clock, you'll start feeling pretty good. And it may only last that one day, but sometimes it gets you started in getting out of the depression. Another thing is to get up early every morning and go outside and walk for half an hour in the bright light. Don't be under a tree or right next to a building. Let the whole sky be up there. Another way to do that is to get lights, and you can buy big lights, neon lights that are stacked in a box, and you get about a foot away from them for half an hour early in the morning. And this is very well proven since Al Lewy did research on it and published in 1981. It triggers the brain into thinking it's spring, and that has an antidepressant effect. Another thing is to take omega-3 fatty acids from fish. So this would be taking 6 or 7 fish oil pills per day. They're usually big pills, a whole gram, so it's a lot to swallow, but if you spread it out during the day, it's not so hard. I have one gentleman that's been on 20 pills of fish oil per day since 1999. And 3 or 4 times we've tried to reduce him to 10 a day, and he gets mildly depressed. It's really quite dramatic. And it's very hard to get most people to take that many pills, but it doesn't bother him. It's probably the anti-inflammatory effect of the fish oil, or it may have some other reason. Another thing to take is folic acid, 1 milligram a day. Men might need a little more, like 2 milligrams per day. Even better than folic acid is the active folate vitamin, and that's called L-methylfolate. And it's been found that if people take a high dose of that, 15 milligrams per day, that in some people it has a dramatic antidepressant effect. And there's also a blood test you can do for a certain gene that would indicate if this is an especially good idea. Another thing is NAC, N-A-C. That stands for N-acetylcysteine. 4 grams of it per day. You can get that either in pills or in powder. It smells terrible, but if you take about 1.5 teaspoons and stir it into yogurt, then you can eat it and it doesn't taste too badly. This is an amino acid, and if you take this, your body can make more of the main antioxidant in the body called glutathione. And you can clean out free radicals much more easily. And a fellow named Michael Burke and his people in Australia decided that this might work because they knew that when people are very depressed or agitated or have some sort of psychiatric problem, there's too many free radicals in their brain and not enough glutathione. And when they did some studies, it worked. I've done it many times. Inositol is a sugar, I-N-O-S-I-T-O-L, 2 to 3 teaspoons twice a day. And I haven't had as much luck with this, but there's some indication that it does help with depression and anxiety sometimes. And inositol is actually a transmitter in the brain, and the theory is that adding extra helps out. Now, vitamin D, everybody should take. Vitamin D is not a vitamin. It's a steroid hormone that we make in steps. And one of the steps is for the sun to hit the skin and turn pre-vitamin D into D3. And then there's 2 more steps. And all of us are low because we all work indoors, and when we do go outdoors, we put on suntan lotion or wear a hat because we're trying to avoid skin cancers. But you need to lay in the sun in the middle of the day in a bathing suit for 45 minutes to really make a lot of vitamin D. And then you can make 15,000 units every day, day after day. The dose for most adults should be about 5,000 units a day. If you're fairly heavy, above 200, you may need 10,000 units a day. And for elderly people, maybe 2,000 units a day.
And if I go to tent, beauty salons that have like this tent machine, does it help? Also, is it for vitamin D?
Does what help?
You have like these salons that you go to get tent, you go inside this big machine.
Oh yeah, the going into those tanning salons, that can sometimes help, because usually in those tanning salons you do make extra vitamin D. I don't remember all the details about it, but there's 2 types of UV light, UV1 and UV2, and only one of them helps make the vitamin D. And I've read that a problem with the tanning salons is you're not really sure how much of each one you're getting, and I'm not so sure that it's a great idea to be trying to tan yourself all the time, because nowadays we live past 80, so by that time you can start getting a lot of skin cancers if you've had a lot of sun exposure. I think it's a little better to take the pill. However, it is true that maybe people do feel better if they actually get in the sun. Notice that we crave the sun. We want to go to the beach. We want to lay out there in the sun and get a suntan. And that may be an evolutionary thing to encourage us to make enough vitamin D, but it may also be increasing the endorphins or something in our brain to give us pleasure. And some of the vitamin D-like chemicals that we make seem to have this pleasure-inducing property. Another thing somebody can take is SAM-E, 400 milligrams twice a day. This is something that is naturally found in our body, And if you take it, you should take it not near a meal so that more of it will be available to your brain. And you should take it with some B12 and some folic acid. B12, a half milligram or so, also can help depression, mainly in people who are low in B12, but a lot of us are low. And the last two things are diet and cholesterol medicine. The cholesterol medicine first. Statins like Lipitor and Zocor and others actually do help with depression, and there's some studies showing this. It seems like the best ones are Zocor, the generic is simvastatin, and Crestor, generic is rosuvastatin. These two have the most lipid solubility, so they can get into the brain more easily, which is perhaps why they have more antidepressant effect. I haven't had terrific benefit adding it in, although I'm doing a number of things, so when people get better, I'm not sure how much the Crestor or Zocor helped. However, in the last year or so, I've had a couple of people that suddenly stopped their Lipitor in one case and simvastatin in another case, or they ran out, and they suddenly went back into their deep depression and were quite surprised. And as soon as they got to the pharmacy and restarted it, they came out of the depression in a couple of days. So it does work. The last thing is diet. And it appears like the very best diet would be to be vegan and eat no animal protein, nothing that comes from animals, not chicken, not steak, not eggs, not milk, not cheese. All of those are animal products. The only animal product that would be good for depression is eating fish. And it's much better if you eat ocean fish rather than freshwater fish for the antidepressant effect. And it may be that these animal proteins are not good for depression because they raise the inflammatory hormones, the cytokines in the body. So it's very good if you eat a lot of vegetables, fruit and nuts, cereals, legumes, and olive oil. And also a Mediterranean diet has been definitely proven in the Archives of General Psychiatry in 2009 actually to help depression. And the Mediterranean diet is very similar to the vegan diet. It is eating mainly salads, fish, vegetables, fruit, and nuts, and avoiding as much as possible other meats other than fish. Now, if these things don't work, then you should definitely see a psychiatrist. And if the depression is very severe, or it's been a long time, or you're feeling suicidal, or you're going to lose your job because of it, then it's better to see a psychiatrist right away and get started. Because we use antidepressants, but they frequently do not have any benefit for about 10 days. And then you're showing some benefit on the depression scales, but it often takes 6 weeks to have really good benefit. And at 6 weeks, even with the best antidepressants, sometimes you only have 15% of people all the way to normal. Now, as time goes on and you augment the antidepressant by adding one of the things I mentioned or other things, or adding a second antidepressant, you can get a very high proportion of people all the way to normal. If you use several different antidepressants and they only work partially or not at all, and you never get close to normal, or you get close to normal and then you lose the benefit, then you should get a completely different type of treatment. And one is shock treatment, electroconvulsive therapy, ECT. Most people are not that enthused about it because it makes you very confused for a few hours and sometimes for 6 weeks or so. It's better probably to use TMS, Transcranial Magnetic Stimulation, and in 30 treatments, maybe 50% of people will be all the way to normal. So if you do one a day for 6 weeks, that would be a general treatment course. And the nice thing about it is that if and when you relapse, you don't need another 30. You may need only 2 or 3 or 5 or 6, and sometimes just 1, and you'll be back up to normal. And some people go for years without a relapse. Now, they're still on medication. If you're on some medicine that's helping to some degree, it's better to stay on it and look upon the TMS as an augmentation strategy, something you're adding on to the antidepressants. However, this augmentation strategy is pretty dramatic if it brings people all the way to normal and helps them stay normal for a long time when they've been depressed all their life. It's quite a treatment. But it doesn't work nearly as well if you use no medicine. Then you're more likely to relapse sooner and maybe have to have a treatment every week or something like that. Anyway, so I've covered some behavioral and diet solutions to depression, and then the next step would be medicine, and the next step would be TMS. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor.